We are going to start then the last part of our annual conference. There will be 2 sessions, and then a small closing. And then we are now going a little bit to the practice of AEBR, so the different projects. Some of these projects have been running around the whole session because, well, they are the core of our work. And many of you have taken part in some of them. Others are not. We would like to encourage you to consider the possibility to participate in B-Solutions. If you have a border obstacle, even if you have an Interreg program or project, you can join, you can attract volunteers, young volunteers. Then there are also a few initiatives for the pilot actions. This will be explained in the second session, but I would like to encourage you also to take part. So here we were supposed to talk today in this session about the future of European territorial cooperation, and we invited the European Commission to deliver some messages. Commissioner Ferreira got in contact with us directly saying that she could not make it, and even it was not possible to send a video message, but she sent all her appreciation for our work. Then some people in the department, which is dealing with cross-border cooperation, they were supposed to come, but for different reasons, they didn't make it. So for the first time after several years, we don't have anyone from the European Commission here. But, well, they are not here, but they are somehow, because as you know, there are 3 or 4 major projects that we are implementing for them. So there is a big trust of the Regio, at least from this department, on our role in order to implement tasks which are supposed to be done by them. For us, has been an extraordinary opportunity. And you will know a little bit more in this session about the Interreg Volunteer Youth and about B-Solutions. There are other projects which we are doing with ESPON. Nicolas Roussignol, who is the person in the ESPON EGTC, he was supposed to come, but he canceled a couple of days ago. I think finally we were lucky because all the cancellations have to do with my panel. So the rest of the panels have been complete, and it will be also the case of the last panel. So, but anyway, I think here we have a good opportunity then to know a little bit more about these different projects, and even you can make questions. But I would also like to get some remarks. How can we do it better? How can we engage you better? And any other expectation that you might have. Perhaps this is the session in which you can say, here we have the people who are responsible of different projects, so we all together, we will take good note of it. And then, last but not least, also we are going to explain a little bit one very good case that we have of a nation state which has I think, a very interesting position towards cross-border cooperation, supporting our work. It's the case of the German federal government, where we are now implementing several actions with them. There has been an interesting period of 2 years where 3 ministries in the German federal government are really engaged on the promotion of cross-border cooperation. I think it's very good news, and hopefully will be an inspiration for other member states. So I think I should not make a longer introduction, because the most important part of the session is going to be the contents of what you are going to hear now. So first of all, I will give the floor to Johannes Moisio. Most of you know him. He has been the chairman of the Task for External Borders since the first General Assembly that I was as Secretary General of AEBR in 2007 in La Peranta. It was a massive meeting where we still have the old generation. Even Victor von Malchus was in the first page of the newspaper dancing humpa. So it was amazing. And in this meeting in 2007, we launched the Task Force External Borders and also the Task Force Cross-Border Health, if I remember right. Johannes is representing South Karelia. And this is one of the regions affected by the closing of Interreg programs with Russia. Then very early in February 2022, we started to think what to do now. They have closed the border. We have this problem. Then we started to launch messages to the European Commission. that were listened more or less, but the reality is that now we can present an ESPON project which is dealing with the situation of these regions, directly affected by the war, the closing of the border, and then a shift, complete shift of their cooperation. So we are exploring this ESPON project, and then you will know some more details now. I would like to let you know also that we are dealing with several other ESPON targeted analyses in different parts of Europe, but today we are going to concentrate on the CHANEBO project. And about the details, the floor is given to Johannes.
Yeah. Yes, do you hear? No, now you hear. Yep. Yes, thank you, Martin. Yes, really, 22, I organized an event to discuss the problematic situation, and during that event, Martin told that it's not late to use the money of CPC programs for another purpose, to make like a few years program ourselves, but our leading politicians didn't take that. They didn't believe in that. So what happened with our CPC program in the previous programming period, it ended, and the money which was reserved already for the current programming period was, if I use a harsh word in our perspective, lost in another program. This is not quite 100% truth, because we made our best to utilize the Interreg Central Baltic program and activate the bodies and organizations in our regions, not only South Karelia but also in Baltic countries. And we had a really big effort to get last spring a targeted call for the eastern border areas. There was a very heavy objections for that, and suspicion that eastern border regions won't be able to use the money, and so there is a risk that the money will be unused. What happened in the April call was that there were more applications in the targeted call than in the regular call. So we made a lot of work, but there is still, it was the EU funding which was transferred to the Interreg Central Baltic, but then this was also the case with the Baltic countries. And in northern Finland, it was a bit different. I think it was Aurora program who got the CPC money. But the national money was just calmly nowhere, or some other purposes, internal purposes of our government. So there are efforts on utilizing programs which were not actually planned for us. But we try our best, but we are not content with that. The focus is very much on programming period 28-34. So that either we would get our own program for a certain area, you will see it in the next slide, or if that is not possible, then influence very much in the current Interreg programs, which are for the Baltic Sea territory. Anyway, everybody, we know that there are many Russian or Russian-based aggressions and problems European-wide. So the ESPON CHANEBO comes from changes at the eastern external borders. So ESPON CHANEBO research project concentrates especially and like separates those problems which are especially for the external border region, the nearer region. But we acknowledge very well that also other regions which are more far away from the border, they have problems, of course. So what are the like immediate problems? We have created logistical corridors in consideration that we have trade and tourism and connections across our eastern border, and they are now more or less unused now, or not in heavy use. So not just truck lines like we saw here in the Norwegian, Swedish borders. Also, there are some problems which we are facing maybe more, the GPS interference, phones very often at the border area, they don't work, or internet doesn't work, it's interfered. Partnerships lost. We have lost purchasing power, like 1 million, South Karelia only, 1 million euro per day in tourism, shopping and restaurants and hotels. And also our industry has lost raw materials which come more near. This is especially wood, but also ore, iron ore, and so on, which is, of course, more expensive if it's bought from more far away territory. So this CHANEBO was planned first. It was planned together with some regions in the Baltic countries. The initiative came actually from Latgale region in Latvia, but they wanted us to be the lead stakeholder and also the lead writer of the application. So we didn't use any consultant, but somebody did the main work. I will not say who. But just a little bit afterwards, our ministry made another research project from TSI, Technical Support Instrument, and OECD is performing that. But it's more like internally structured, so it concentrates only in the Finnish border regions, and surely also in the programs which are working internally. So it's not about cross-border cooperation in that sense. Let's go to the next slide. Yes. Well, maybe we'll skip this. This is too much information. We go to the maps. Yes. Okay. Here is the map in which the dark blue territory are the stakeholders. So in Finland, South Karelia, in Estonia, Itä-Virumaa, or East Virumaa, if it's allowed to say in English. In Latvia, the southeast territory, Latgale, and then some parts of Utena region in Lithuania. They are more facing the Belarus. But the light blue territory is also within the research, so the background statistics and also conclusions and also reference comes from that territory, starting from Finnmark at north. Several Finnish regions there, and also a few Baltic regions, which are the border territory. And also, I believe the results which we achieve like the interviews are done only among the stakeholder regions, but the results still may be case by case applied by other border regions. I must refer that even these stakeholder regions are different. So we have noticed already at this stage, for example, the Lithuanian region, they don't have a functioning border crossing, so the effects seem to be they are not so severe than with these regions who have border crossing. And the research team, you can see it with yellow background, but the companies are Spatial Foresight. It's more like Latvian-based University of Eastern Finland, which has one of their campuses in North Karelia, our neighboring region, North Eval, and then Seyfits Baltia. And the Seyfits Baltia is more concentrating on the security and safety issues. Okay, next slide, please. Yes. And the motives why we are doing this research is the fact that border crossings are not working as they used to be. They are limited, especially the human traffic is very limited. And this has its immediate impact to the neighboring regions here in the EU side. There is a loss of trade, communication, and cooperation. So in a wide scale, the partnerships which were constructed before, they are practically zero now. In practice, if I try to contact some colleague, like it's not an immediate partner, but I have communicated a lot with Elena Sadovnikova in Moscow, who has been in many AEBR meetings, but not for about half a year, and even before that, the communication was words which were very well thought beforehand, not to cause any trouble, especially for her. So we cannot touch any sensitive issues. So this is not anymore it has nothing to do in developing the cross-border cooperation or relations. It's just keeping contact. So it's not motivating those who are deeply sunken inside the concept of cross-border cooperation. Yes, the own CPC program was closed, and we are not expecting to have one in the nearest future. Next programming period, surely not, but maybe not even the following, because the preparation of the programs is starting well beforehand. So the first steps in preparing the next programming period is happening now, and during this year, and of course continuing after that. And the other funding tools are nearly not fit for the border regions. One thing is that safety and security is not an objective in current Interreg programs. They are not supporting investments. Only some minor things. They are more like equipment and so. They are not anymore supporting partnership building. They used to, but they did it for a couple of programming periods, and now the attitude is that we will not anymore support partnership building because we have done it already. And those regions who have come into the programming area afterwards are suffering because we cannot do the things the others have done. This is South Karelia. Yes, we have been for one programming period the core area, but South Savo, our northern neighbor, which is light blue there, they just joined about a year ago the programming period because of this CBC money, and they really have not any possibility so far. Also, the Interreg programs, they don't support research cooperation, so the indicators are created for practical solutions and practical results, like how many tons CO2 are reduced. So if there are a couple of universities making research together, the reduction of CO2 is 0. Because the aim is not the result. The research report is not a result in this case. And also the geographical orientation is different. We have to, not to be upside down, but maybe 90 degrees from vertical position to, or horizontal position to vertical. Okay, shortly the next slide. Just to mention that the President Ursula von der Leyen has expressed her will that the Vice President who is dealing with cohesion and reforms, Mr. Rafael Fitto, will focus on providing support to eastern border regions. Okay, let's go to the core, the method. So the research might be a little bit similar to those who have already been involved in ESPON projects. But anyway, the focus is on the effects of the Russian attack war for the border regions. And then one thing is to concentrate on the EU programs, the cross-border cooperation programs, whether the current Interreg programs would be improved to fit better the external border regions, or would a totally new Interreg program be more suitable. But also to bring up the problems and also the risks, in many cases socio-economic and the problems in transport links, how to develop them in the current situation. And in general, how to make more resilient and secure in the future. Yeah, let's go further. Yes, this is a bit small text, but it's the consultant work, the perspective cross-border cooperation. I already, actually, the previous one. Does anybody have it? Okay. Yes, and but you can see the very colored picture. It's too small, but there are so many factors included in our environment that the discussion. We have had some local interviews discussion groups in Finland, in Estonia, in Latvia, in Lithuania, which formed also a basis on the research, and there were many factors came up there. And there is also suspicious minds in the future that are the Baltic countries the right partner, even though they are near, are they the right partners for us? Mainly because they are much smaller, with lower economy. This comes especially from the industry and businesses, and so the logistical routes should be planned further also than not only to the Baltics, but how they work also to, for example, to Central Europe. There is no slide about this, but this research will continue the whole spring, and then in the beginning of June next year, everything should be done except final dissemination event, and this is we are aim to do this in Brussels by help of AEBR and ESPON in some nice place and to get. So therefore AEBR has been as an observatory body in the project, and of course with good comments, but also in the dissemination is the thing which is helpful for the project body, not only for us but also for ESPON. I have understood that they lean much on AEBR and the membership network of AEBR. Also, we have ministries from Finland, Estonia, and Latvia are actively involved as advisory bodies, and the steering group meetings. That was it, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay. Thank you. Well, as you can see, this is the approach to the future European Territorial Cooperation. We are taking for granted that Interreg will stay for the next programming period, including the next programs, so the programs to the external borders, including the borders where cooperation is not possible across because we have Russia or Belarus in the other side. But then these regions cannot be excluded, and they have a critical position. Even if we think that in the future the situation should change, and Putin will pass away, hopefully soon, and then a new opportunity should be developed about the relationship with Russia. But in any case, we need an alternative for the territorial development of these regions. In the meantime, trying not to dramatize too much the issue, but the situation is really hard for some companies and even some institutions. That's why the targeted analysis made by ESPON is trying to influence whatever territorial cooperation we have afterwards, taking into account that we are not sure if we are going to have territorial cooperation. But this is out of our scope today, and even still is out of our power. But we have to pay attention. Now the discussion is on cohesion, and we cannot afford that there is a reduction in cohesion, because the first part that they are going to reduce is going to be the territorial cooperation for sure. So that's why we are trying to have different approaches, starting with the most challenging regions, apart from the regions bordering Ukraine, that we also have the enormous challenges. Thank you very much, Johannes. I think you can also make your questions through Sli.do, and then we will try to summarize afterwards, or try to make some answers, etc. And if you are more interested about the CHANEBO program, please come back. There are regions which are not included in the partnership, but they are included in the research. And some of them are the target of of us. So please do not hesitate to contact Johannes in order to know more and see how you can facilitate the research. It's very important that many are taking part so that we can present a more robust set of results. Okay, then another issue, and we are going to prepare the video. Another issue regarding the future territorial cooperation is who will make territorial cooperation when we go to pension, or will we change? During many years, many of our members said, we don't have young people working in Interreg. There is a very little focus on the youth. And then, discussing with the Commission in 2017, and taking the opportunity that President of the Commission, Juncker, launched the European Solidarity Corps, which was thought to involve the young Europeans in solidarity actions within and outside the EU, then we came with a crazy idea, because when we said that the first time, everybody was saying, you're crazy. Let's deploy volunteers in Interreg. Well, as I have said a couple of times during these days, we are about to deploy the volunteer number 1,000. There are more than 60 programs of Interreg which are hosting the volunteers. And there are enormous. There is a collection of 11 publications, stories of border cooperation. They are in the Interact website and also in AEBR, where you can find hundreds of stories of territorial cooperation which have been prepared by young people. We are very proud, and we want to put these 12 publications in one big book in the coming months, if everything goes fine. But much better than me, the members of our team who are dealing with Interreg Volunteer Youth, they have prepared the following video where you will have a better perspective of what we are talking about.
On the future of territorial cooperation has started across the EU. Discussions are taking place across all Interreg programs. IB volunteers have been consulted as main group of young people with strong interest and general knowledge on territorial cooperation. On 26 June, the IB consultation on future Interreg was launched, with an official kickoff event organized by AEBR's IB team, followed by a second event titled Post-2027 Consultations, Voices of IB Volunteers, organized by the European Commission's DG Regio and AEBR. With a total of 63 respondents among current and former IB volunteers, half of them comes from a border region, with 97.6% considering living next to a border as an opportunity, highlighting several key reasons. Cultural exchange and enrichment. Living near a border fosters multicultural experiences that broaden perspectives, promote open-mindedness, and encourage cross-cultural collaboration. Participants noted that this enriched their personal development and education. Economic and professional opportunities. Living near a border offers expanded job opportunities due to access to the labor markets of neighboring countries and economic flexibility, such as price comparisons across borders. Border proximity also facilitated networking and partnerships. Cross-border mobility. Ease of travel between countries was a frequently cited advantage, allowing people to explore new places, find job opportunities, and engage in cross-border leisure activities. Several mentioned the advantage of bilingual education and the potential to learn another language through daily interactions. Collaboration on common challenges. Many respondents pointed out that borders offer opportunities to work together on shared issues, such as environmental initiatives, healthcare, mobility, and infrastructure. These collaborations can drive innovation and improve services in border regions, transcending national boundaries. IB volunteers have identified the following current challenges in territorial cooperation. Lack of knowledge about Interreg among citizens and young people. Language differences between regions, especially in cross-border areas, represent a challenge for effective cooperation between partners. Complex administrative procedures, regulations, and slow bureaucratic processes are seen as major barriers to smooth cooperation. Uneven levels of economic development between regions create gaps in cooperation, with wealthier areas being better positioned to participate in projects, while poorer regions face difficulties. Poor transportation links and digital connectivity between regions hinder cross-border collaboration and limit the reach of cooperation programs. The IEV consultation on future Interreg will contribute to shape the future of territorial cooperation through the harvesting report that the IB team will share with the European Commission. Understanding the perspectives of young people is crucial for shaping effective and inclusive policies for the future of our regions.
So, well, I asked the team to concentrate the message on the consultation, and they did it. So, the European DG Regio asked us to try to promote a consultation on the future of European territorial cooperation through the volunteers, in order to have this perspective on the young people. And I think it's quite okay. Actually, we have seen some of the outputs of the other consultations, and somehow we were receiving the same type of arguments than ever. They're still valid, of course, but it sounds like repetitive, that we are always asking for the same. But suddenly are the young people also discussing among them and consulting with all the amount of young people who are volunteering about their, clearly, first of all, they have understood what this territorial cooperation about. And we have the impression also that they have now militant youngsters for territorial cooperation. And there are more initiatives prepared. But it's very important also, again, we should insist that you talk to your politicians. And all those of you who are politicians, please talk to the other politicians which are in the places where the decisions are taken, particularly at the national level. The Commission, even the Commission itself, it's somehow renationalizing some of these programs. If territorial cooperation gets nationalized, we are dead. Then all the achievement of the last 35 years will be spoiled, because we have never been a priority for the nation states. It's normal. So we need to have this kind of positive discrimination. If all the money goes back, and Interreg money is peanuts at the end of the day, if it goes to the mainstreaming program of the nation states, it would be the end of the European territorial cooperation, but frankly speaking, I'm convinced that it will be the end of the European Union. Because if we are giving all the money back to the states, why do we need that? So I think it's very important that we take this very seriously, and the question is urgent, because the decisions are going to be taken very soon. Anyway, 2 days ago, we got the news that the Council suddenly has revitalized the mechanism. This is good news. At the end, it's going to be the Hungarian presidency are fulfilling their promises, and the mechanism is revitalized. We are going to try in 2 weeks in Brussels, when we launch the platform, the European cross-border platform, also to make a huge call for the defense of the European territorial cooperation. And I think that mini campaigns in every border region would be extremely efficient. We are going to coordinate, we are going to try to coordinate as much as we can, but I think that the messages are clear. We don't need to agree on 3, 4 messages. They are clear. So let's move forward. Let's try to spread the word. It's very nice to talk in our bubble, but we are convinced now we have to speak about this outside. Anyway, there are also more good news, because how do we see the future European territorial cooperation? With a stronger involvement of the member states, of the nation states, supporting the territorial cooperation as we understood. So taking big respect of subsidiarity, giving the opportunity, giving the leadership to the regions, to the subnational level, but with a strong commitment from the nation state. I love to talk about my own country. My own country, Spain, is a very decentralized country, but they have not taken seriously a European territorial cooperation. Fortunately, we have autonomous regions who do. So this is the wealth. But there are other member states that suddenly have taken a very serious position to support European territorial cooperation. And we are very proud of being part of it and to have a strong partnership. And this is what Peter is going to talk about, among other things. So now, instead of being me who said that, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Martin. Welcome, and I will use German language because we're talking about German issues. So, meine Damen und Herren, liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen, gucken wir auf Deutschland, haben wir 9 Nachbarstaaten, dementsprechend sehr viele Grenzen und Grenzregionen. Es gibt ungefähr 20 organisierte, institutionalisierte Euregios und 3/4 davon sind in der AGEC organisiert. Wir 14, 15 treffen uns regelmäßig, tauschen uns regelmäßig aus, sind auch, was die Kommunikation angeht, untereinander, aber auch miteinander, glaube ich, ganz gut informiert und konnten in den letzten 10 Jahren schon immer mal den einen oder anderen Kontakt nach Berlin finden, ein offenes Ohr. Und gerade was den Bereich Bauwesen, Raumplanung, Raumbeobachtung angeht, hat es ja an vielen Grenzen Kooperationen gegeben, wo die Grenzregionen auch mitgewirkt haben. Nun geschah es im Jahre 2021, dass eine neue Regierung sich in Berlin gebildet hat und im Koalitionsvertrag dazu findet man den Satz, dass die grenzüberschreitende Zusammenarbeit gefördert werden soll, unter anderem mit Experimentierklauseln durch Regionalräte und Grenzscouts. Und dieser Satz, der passierte ja auf Seite 275, das heißt, man hat ihn gar nicht erst wahrgenommen, bis es dann irgendwann mal auch dazu kam, nachzufragen, was ist denn das? Und keiner konnte eine richtige Antwort geben. Glücklicherweise aber hat das deutsche Außenministerium, das Auswärtige Amt, diese 3 Themen aufgegriffen und aktiv begleitet, indem man Forschungsvorhaben ausgeschrieben hat im Jahre 2022 und Wissenschaftler gebeten hat, zu untersuchen, was sind denn Experimentierklauseln, wie können die grenzüberschreitend angewendet werden, was sind Regionalräte, wo gibt es das, wo kann uns das grenzüberschreitend helfen und wie sieht es mit diesen Grenzscouts aus? Was für eine Funktion könnten die haben? Wo gibt es die schon? Und wie könnte man diese implementieren? Im Mai letzten Jahres wurden dann die Studien herausgegeben. Es wurde zu Workshops eingeladen, an denen alle Grenzregionen an den deutschen Grenzen auch beteiligt waren. Und dort konnte man dann das eine oder andere auch lernen, was die Wissenschaftler unter zum Beispiel Experimentierklauseln verstehen, wie die Wirkung und mögliche Wirkung eingeschätzt wird, wo es Regionalräte gibt und ob dort irgendeine Verbesserung zu erwarten ist. Und ganz speziell das Thema Grenzscouts liegt mir am Herzen, hier mitzuteilen. Denn dieses bedeutet, dass eine Grenzregion eine Funktion hat, die beraten, die Informationen weitergeben kann in beide Richtungen und die als sehr erfolgversprechend für eine Verbesserung der grenzüberschreitenden Zusammenarbeit angesehen wurde in den Untersuchungen. Man hat daraufhin im Auswärtigen Amt zusammen mit dem Bundesbauministerium und dem Bundesinnenministerium eine interministerielle Arbeitsgruppe geschaffen, die sich diese Themen zu Herzen genommen hat und geschaut hat, wie können wir damit weiterarbeiten. Durch eine etwas glückliche Fügung gab es dann auch über das Bundesinnenministerium die Möglichkeit, Gelder aus dem Bundeshaushalt einzustellen für ein Förderprogramm, das genau diese Grenzscouts finanziell unterstützen soll. Das Ganze relativ niederschwellig, das heißt keine 20 Seiten Antrag, sondern relativ schnell Geld zu beantragen und auch relativ schnell Maßnahmen umsetzen zu können, die eben Grenzscout-Aktivitäten fördern sollen, die einen Pilotcharakter haben sollen und die gerne auch zum Vorteil für andere Grenzregionen in Deutschland genutzt werden können. Konkret gab es 2 Calls und unter den bisher genehmigten Projekten gehört unter anderem, und das sind viele unserer Mitglieder, die davon bisher profitiert haben, etwas ganz Konkretes, nämlich eine Software, die entwickelt werden soll, damit man bei Beratungseinrichtungen in Grenzregionen Termine buchen kann. Es wurde in einer Grenzregion auch die Personalkosten unterstützt für eine Person, die diese Grenzscout-Aufnahme wahrnehmen soll. Die Entwicklung einer App zur Beratung von Grenzpendlern und Bürgern überhaupt, die auch mehreren Grenzregionen zugute nehmen soll, wurde gefördert. Ein Meldesystem von juristischen Barrieren, das heißt Mobilitätsbarrieren können dann automatisch an eine entsprechende juristische Stelle weitergeleitet werden und so analysiert werden. Und da bin ich auch ein bisschen stolz drauf, haben wir gemeinsam einen Antrag durchbekommen, wo für die deutschen Grenzregionen ein Workshop erarbeitet wird, wissenschaftlich begleitet wird, wo uns deutschen Grenzregionen beigebracht wird, wie wir mit grenzüberschreitenden Daten arbeiten können. Also sozusagen Statistiknachhilfe für uns Dummies aus den deutschen Grenzregionen. Das Ganze ist zum Teil schon in Arbeit bzw. in Vorbereitung. Wir hoffen, dass wir auch im nächsten Jahr noch die Mittel von rund 200.000 € im Jahr abrufen können und dass wir dann über 3 Jahre insgesamt dann doch einiges an Geld für die Grenzregionen haben locker machen können und dass vor allem auch diese Projekte dann zeigen können, in welche Richtung Grenzscouts gedacht sind, nämlich Kommunikation und Beratung zu fördern, aber auch das Miteinander zwischen den Grenzregionen. Und der Anfang ist gemacht und wir hoffen natürlich, dass es weitergeht. Darüber hinaus hat es 2023 auch unter Begleitung des Auswärtigen Amtes, und das sind nur Beispiele, die ich nenne, ein deutsch-tschechisches Regionalforum gegeben. Es wurde 2024 der deutsch-polnische Aktionsplan unterzeichnet und schon, und das sage ich zum Schluss, weil das meine Grenzregion ist, 2022 die beiden Außenministerinnen Deutschland und Dänemarks einen 14-seitigen Aktionsplan unterzeichnet haben. Und dort wurden ganz, ganz viele Kooperationspunkte von lokalen Arbeitsgruppen bis hin zu europäisch abgestimmter Politik im Bereich der Digitalisierung festgehalten. Da gehört auch Energiewende und Power-to-X und Wasserstoffautobahnen dazu, also wirklich ein sehr dickes, umfangreiches Papier. Aber auf der ersten Seite stand, dass man eine Arbeitsgruppe einrichten will, die sich deutsch-dänische Mobilitätsbarrieren anschauen soll. An dieser war ich dann nun auch zum größten Teil beteiligt. Das Ganze begann im Mai letzten Jahres. Es gab 3 Sitzungen mit sehr vielen Menschen aus allen möglichen Institutionen und Ministerien und Unterarbeitsgruppen, die sich dann um die 60 Themen angeschaut haben. Und das Ganze wurde jetzt vor wenigen Wochen mit einem Bericht abgeschlossen, in dem so ungefähr 10% dieser Barrieren schon mal abgeschlossen und mit einem grünen Haken versehen werden konnte. Ein Großteil musste leider als nicht lösbar bzw. durch die Europäische Kommission zu lösen angesehen werden und der Rest ist noch in Bearbeitung. Was ist aber das Ergebnis, was viel wichtiger ist? Wir als Grenzregion, die sehr viel mit diesem Problem arbeiten, haben jetzt einen richtig direkten Draht zu den Fachministerien in Berlin und Kopenhagen und durch die persönlichen Kontakte gerade bekommen wir innerhalb von wenigen Wochen eine Antwort und zumindest einen Ansprechpartner und das ist manchmal viel mehr wert als große Berichte und Analysen. Umso erfreulicher ist es, dass vor 2 Wochen die beiden Außenministerien festgestellt haben, dass diese Arbeit so erfolgreich war, dass man diese nun verstetigt als sogenanntes deutsch-dänisches Grenzgremium bzw. als Cross-Border Panel. Und apropos Zusammenarbeit im Norden und nordischer Grenzhinderungs- oder Free Movement Panel, nun haben wir auch so ein Ding zwischen Deutschland und Dänemark und werden gucken, dass wir zum Herbst die Arbeit aufnehmen können. Beteiligt sind die beiden Außenministerien, beteiligt ist die Staatskanzlei des Landes Schleswig-Holstein und die Region Sonderjylland Schleswig. Die deutsche Außenministerin Frau Baerbock hat sich übrigens persönlich von der Arbeit ein Bild gemacht, indem sie im Juli in Flensburg in unserer Grenzregion zu Besuch war. Apropos Deutsch-Dänisch, und das gehört auch zur Wahrheit, es gibt seit der Europameisterschaft Grenzkontrollen auch Richtung Deutschland aus dem Norden und seit wenigen Wochen ja ganz konkret aufgrund der besonderen Sicherheitslage in Deutschland auch. Ich muss allerdings sagen, dass die Kontrollen zwischen Deutschland und Dänemark ja sowieso von der Tatsache geprägt sind, dass seit 2016 Grenzkontrollen von dänischer Seite immer wieder verlängert durchgeführt werden, mal strenger und mal weniger streng. Was uns aber gelungen ist, dass wir auf beide Seiten eingewirkt haben mit der Bitte, dass der Verkehr möglichst gering beeinflusst wird und das scheint zu funktionieren. Also wir haben von der deutschen Seite bisher gar nichts von Verkehrsstaus gehört und von der dänischen Seite eher begrenzt. Im Moment sind wir da ganz zufrieden. Dazu kommt dann auch noch die Nachricht von vor 2 Wochen, dass sich die beiden Innenminister Deutschland und Dänemarks zusammengetan haben und ein Bahnkontrollabkommen abgeschlossen haben, in dem es jetzt nämlich deutschen Polizisten erlaubt, auf den dänischen Bahnhof Padborg zu kommen mit Dienstwaffe, dort in den Zug einzusteigen und unterwegs schon die Kontrollen durchzuführen Richtung Deutschland und dass zur Zeit auch für die Reisenden gespart wird. Und da sind wir sehr froh drüber, denn vorher war das ein bisschen abenteuerlich. Die mussten quasi auf der freien Strecke anhalten mit Leitern in den Zug und dort ihre Kontrollarbeit durchführen. Gucken wir nach vorne. dann freue ich mich auch auf eine Kooperation der deutschen Bundesregierung mit einem ganz anderen Thema. Es gab nämlich im Juli den ersten Aufschlag, dass das Bundesarbeitsministerium mit den Grenzregionen an der deutsch-niederländischen Grenze gemeinsam eine Arbeitsmarktkonferenz durchgeführt hat. Das Ganze wurde auch mitorganisiert von der Europäischen Arbeitsmarktbehörde ELA. Und dort wurde gerade das Thema soziale Sicherheit und aber auch soziale Garantien von Mindestarbeitsbedingungen in grenzüberschreitenden Arbeit fokussiert. Da waren unsere Kollegen von den deutsch-niederländischen Grenzregionen auch federführend mit beteiligt. Und das war ein Riesenerfolg und auch zum ersten Mal so ein bisschen europäisch, ein bisschen deutsch-dänisch, grenzregional, aber auch ein bisschen deutsch-niederländisches Betrachten von diesen Fragestellungen. Und da konnten alle sehr viel von lernen. Und ich hoffe, dass auch andere Fachministerien dieses dann weiter aufgreifen wollen. Ja, und zum Abschluss noch ein Ausblick. Ich habe ja gesagt, die Projekte laufen an und weiter. Auch im letzten Jahr gab es über die Universität Nürnberg mit unserem geschätzten Kollegen Professor Schiller, der ja auch schon in vielen unserer Veranstaltungen dabei war, einen Workshop unter dem Namen Grenzraumakademie, wo sich Grenzregionen austauschen konnten zu verschiedenen aktuellen Fragestellungen. Und diese wird Ende Januar in Berlin wiederholt. Die Kosten dafür übernimmt das Bundesinnenministerium, die Programmplanung steht und wir freuen uns da auf 2 Tage Austausch mit Experten, aber vor allem auch mit uns als deutsche Grenzregion und natürlich auch unserer AGEC und hoffe sehr, dass wir reichlich vertreten sein werden, um dann zu gucken, dass wir auch in den nächsten 2 Jahren da etwas Neues schaffen und das Alte weiterführen können. Vielen Dank.
Okay. Vielen Dank, Peter. Außer die Sache von Grenzkontrolle, wie schon wäre, wenn mehrere Mitgliedstaaten den gleichen Approach zum Grenzgebiete, Grenzregionen hätten. Aber ja, wir haben den Fall von Luxemburg, aber wir haben auch andere, das gehen in die falsche Richtung. Okay, ich wechsle zum Englisch. Yes, I think it's a very interesting approach. We are trying to also to spread the information that is going on in the German government to other member states. It would be excellent to have something like that. We will have the opportunity now to participate in 2 specific projects, but we are going to follow up all these small projects that have been approved a couple of weeks ago, actually. So very promising, really. So talking about the future, we could expect. I think it would be interesting for you also to use this information when talking or approaching your national authorities. There is much to win, especially for border regions. But as we have stressed very often, every time that we solve a problem in a border region, every time that we facilitate that people remain in the border region, we are not only investing in the border region, but in the rest of the country. Actually, Draghi, I think it was Draghi, the one who said that. No, it was not Draghi, but a member of the European Parliament said very clearly that there could be, with numbers, that there will be several millions of jobs created and several millions of billions of euros that would be created in border regions, but would be also an indirect effect in the rest of the economy, the GDP of the member states, if we were able to solve many cross-border obstacles, which still are there, as B-Solutions has already demonstrated. And then this is the next point of our panel, the new B-Solutions. We started in 2018 with B-Solutions 1, and then we were able to identify plenty of obstacles in different thematic fields, even to propose some solutions. This was the compromise. But then so the Commission was happy. But then the stakeholders on the ground said, okay, but what do we do with the solution, with the proposal of solution? In many cases, the regions themselves, they committed to push this solution forward. But in many other cases, they don't have the possibility. They are not received by the ministries. They are not here or listen in the national parliaments. So we had to push. We cannot have, again, a set of studies to put it in our shelves and then let's go for the next project. No. B-Solutions is thought not to solve the problem, but to show the way. But that's why in B-Solutions 2, then we decided to include a second objective, which was to take the solution and put it forward. Then, for this purpose, we asked Caitriona Mullan to help us as research facilitator. She's very used to deal with cross-border obstacles because she's coming from the Irish border, but she's also very used to see the good effects of cooperation, because many of the colleagues who are also here from Ireland, they were somehow connected with the Good Friday Agreement and all the things happening afterwards. So then we have been working with Caitriona for many years, and then together we developed this second part of B-Solutions, which was, okay, now let's try to engage the national authorities, which is in most cases the ones who have the possibility to go forward. Let's get them sit down with the stakeholders and let's explain that the little movement from their side could be a leverage for the whole of the country and for the relationship with the neighbors and for the development of a proper integration from the grassroots level, which is what we are looking for. So, well, we finally were able to develop 9 specific cases, which are in the last compendium. You can find it there. And this is the line that we want to follow in B-Solutions 3, where we have the regular, traditional way. We receive the obstacles, we decide, or we check if they are eligible, then we appoint an expert, and then we go forward to define the solution. Then we have the second pillar, which is what I explained, that to try to put the solution forward. And we have included in B-Solutions 3 a third pillar, which is very similar to the first pillar, to the early pillar of B-Solutions 1, to develop pilot actions. Sometimes the solution is not that, even the obstacle is not that easy to define. So we are going to recover this early experience of supporting the regions, some regions, during several months, even with expert support, but also with money, to define the obstacle and to put it forward in order to find the proper solution. And then perhaps to connect it with the second pillar in order to put the solutions up. So also for this task, we have asked Caitriona to support us in this third phase of B-Solutions. And we are using all the arguments, elements, and examples that we are identifying to put it in our portfolio of arguments in favor of cohesion, and especially of territorial cohesion. But anyway, much more than me, the one who has all this in his head is Caitriona. So I directly pass you the floor.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is this on?
No.
No.
Yes, now.
Now it's on? Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Martin. So, yeah, I mean, I guess everyone has heard the term B-Solutions bandied around repeatedly. Some people know what it is. Some people know that it's a thing, but they're not quite sure what it is. So, very simply, for people who are newcomers who might be interested, B-Solutions is an initiative of DG Regio, the border focal point. They have funded AEBR to deliver the programme on their behalf and working with them. And what B-Solutions has done and continues to do is to commission a massive, diverse body of evidence, expert evidence reports, which identify evidence-based solutions to a range of legal and administrative obstacles in border regions across the EU. The obstacles are so varied. Every area of life, every area of public life, every theme, development theme, regulatory issues, environmental collaboration, healthcare mobility. I mean, the list goes on. So anything that is to do with mobility of people, goods, animals in some cases as well, and I suppose the smoothing of borders so that border regional territories can function as transboundary functional areas. B-Solutions is a tool. It's not a very costly tool for the Commission. The amount of investment in a case is relatively small, but very powerful. So if you're a host organisation in a border region and you've identified that there's a particular regulatory clash in your region that, if it was resolved, would actually release a whole lot more development cooperation in the region, where it might actually grow a market in the region for something. Using an example from Norway and Sweden, we're continuing to work with this case, a very simple case of looking at the fact that the building control rules in Norway and Sweden were different, and that this actually had implications for the wood construction sector, for manufacturing, for the costs of cross-border trade, and also for expansion of wood as a sustainable construction material across the whole of the Nordic region. So the case involved an initial analysis of what the actual divergence was on either side of the border in terms of the building control. It looked at a template for harmonisation of the regulations. So, I mean, on a very, very basic level, if you've got different building control requirements on either side of the border, I know we've got some engineers and architects in the room, but essentially it means a lot for how you package raw materials. It means, you know, how many pallets can you get on a truck or a train going across the border? Can you even get them across the border? Do you have the machinery and the production lines that will allow you to manufacture for the market across the border? Do you have the regulatory, do you have the engineering certifications? Do you have all of the professional recognition? I mean, it's a whole sectoral issue. And so the initial case study was the original case study done by Kjell Nielsen and Svinesund Committee, who are also here today. And Annika Daisley in particular drove the case. We then moved it into Objective 2, where we actually then partnered up with the Nordic Council of Ministers, because there was an interest in taking this solution beyond just the Norway-Sweden dimension and across all of the Nordic countries, all of the members of the Nordic Council of Ministers. So we're now in a situation where that dialogue has been created. There is work to be done in terms of political agreement and the kind of the detail work around the actual regulatory alignment and the preparation of, you know, all of the documentation and the governance, the hard governance and the soft governance. Sometimes you get the hard governance when you actually make the soft governance work. I think that's the thing you've got to remember. The soft governance is very important to getting the hard stuff. And then the next move is now to have another conversation about this, see if we can actually get the thing elevated as a political priority. We will be, I think, holding a workshop in Copenhagen in the first part of next year with the Council of Free Movement, which also sits under the Nordic Council of Ministers, and also particularly engaging with industry in the Nordic region, because it is the industry that can really help to flourish, make the region flourish, but grow sustainable construction. Because, I mean, let's face it, we need, you know, this is all part of Europe's green transition, and it's then demonstrating the idea that if you can have regulatory alignment in one particular technical area, what that can release for the economy, and also the kind of example that can give to other macro regions of the European Union and external borders, because obviously, you know, this actually goes right across to Iceland. So we have, we had Iceland in the conversations about the alignment of the markets and the building regulations. That's just one example. In terms of B solutions overall, I mean, we've dealt with cases that deal with climate action, civil protection and preparedness, emergency planning, green transition, healthcare, primary, secondary and tertiary education, recognition of qualifications, labour mobility, social protection, taxation, integration of taxation and social insurance, all of those things. These are still all of these things that are happening at the borders that we need to find ways of weaving our way through. And the big message is always, when we're trying to, you know, particularly talk to member states about this stuff, is that 30% of the population of the EU lives in a border region, and 40% of the EU's territory is border. And that means a lot as well in terms of the kind of governance that we need to run across borders to release the full potential of the single market. At the other side of the single market, which is the integration of social protection across Europe. If you integrate social protection and make it possible for people to easily access their social protection rights, then they will move to work. That, you know, they will actually go across borders to work, and employers will be able to attract employees, and so on and so forth. So there's the big map of the enablers across Europe. There's the healthcare regulation, the social security regulation, the various directives that require these kind of environmental collaborative governance pieces in border regions, and then there's the detail as to exactly how that can be resolved in a specific border region with two member states side by side, where they might have actually just slightly transposed European legislation slightly differently, or they may have rules that limit the degree to which a directive is implemented in full, like the healthcare directive, for example. I mean, let's face it, there are national insurance funds all over Europe that basically don't like telling patients what they're entitled to reclaim and be reimbursed for, because it means that they can't control the national health finances. So there are all of these sort of things, well, that's their perception, but actually the thing is then there are economies associated with being able to create access for your citizens to a service without necessarily having to provide that service yourself. So there's that pragmatism as well. So B Solutions works at the heart of all of these processes. We've over 170 case studies. We're slowly moving cases into Objective 2. Anyone in the room who is sitting on Objective 1 reports and is interested in taking those on into having support for some implementation and that kind of more multi-level brokerage and the persuasion and the bringing people around a table to really, really say, how can we actually implement this and embed this? We support you on that too. So if you are interested in that, will you please either come and see me or drop me a line or contact the AEBR offices and we'll pick that up with you. So I think the thing about B Solutions, again, when you demonstrate the possibility of a case recommendations being implemented somewhere, it demonstrates that the European Union is full of resolvable obstacles to integration. And sometimes they're just there because nobody's really looked at them. And people accept them as obstacles. They accept them in a slightly fatalistic, well, that's just the way things are. But then again, innovation requires that we question, well, is that the only way things can be? Or could things be different? If we just changed one small thing about what we're doing. This is about a Europe that's truly closer to citizens. We also have limited competency in border regions for some of the national issues. And that's where B Solutions, in terms of the Objective 2 piece, can be very influential, because by and large, implementing a solution in a border region is very rarely only possible with the stakeholders from the border region. Frequently, you need the national stakeholders, you need the ministries involved. But what B Solutions can do is create these soft space, collaborative, multi-level cooperation spaces focused on border regions, into which you can invite representatives, public officials from ministries who are struggling or grappling with something, or who have maybe said, well, there's a limit to which we can actually achieve that national objective. We can't do it in the border region because it's a border region and there's all this other stuff that across the border. So what we've been doing with some of the cases is, and quite successfully, I would say, we have been creating collaborative networks, or allowing them, sort of encouraging them, and then seeing people take these up and run with them. And we have one example of a case that's actually gone through Objective 2, and one that's probably going to come into Objective 1 for a new case, right? So they're both in the healthcare sector. But the first one is Valga Hospital. So Valga is a twin city on the Latvian-Estonian border. It's literally like a city with a stream running down the middle of it that is the border that was the Schengen border and, an old historical border. And the hospital's on one side of the city. And everybody on the other side of the city wants to be able to use the hospital, except they're in a different country. So there is this issue of how much the Latvian Insurance Fund will support people to access certain types of services at the Valga Hospital. Valga Hospital itself is a border hospital within Estonia, so it depends on, for its viability, on having a sufficient patient catchment. The way it can do that is by taking a catchment that is a cross-border catchment. So the case was the first case was study was done by Annika Junse, and the second piece was done by Alina Dudala and Daiga Behmane from the Riga Stratenis University of Health Economics. So they had done a sort of a cost-benefit analysis focused on making a case to the Latvian government for block increasing the range of procedures that Latvians in Valka would automatically be able to access just across the border in their own city, in Valka Hospital. And part of that was also the idea of setting up a collaborative group in the region that was healthcare leaders, clinical leadership, the municipalities, and the national contact points from the ministries responsible for healthcare insurance. And that was one of the recommendations that actually came out of the second piece. And that was great. And we thought, well, if even if there's just one additional procedure available to Latvian patients on this side of the city, even if they can get, I think they can do, at the moment they can do X-ray. And the idea was access to more diagnostics. And there's still a little bit of uncertainty as to whether the agreement that's in place can be expanded in its next phase. But that will all depend on what happens in the next year. But in the meantime, I got a call from one of the Latvian national contact point for the healthcare directive saying, we have to do a workshop because of the review of the directive. We need to do a workshop on patients' rights and citizens' information around healthcare entitlements for cross-border care. But we'd really like to take into account what happened with the B-Solutions project. So essentially, about a month ago, there was another major event in Valka where Commission representatives went, a huge collection of people. I wasn't able to be there in person, but I was able to speak online at it. And they gathered, and the first part of the morning was these really, really interactive dialogues around healthcare insurance, cross-border collaboration, looking at, how do you actually mobilise those healthcare insurance systems for promotion of well-being in the border population, so on and so forth. And then the second half of the afternoon was really taking forward this idea of the collaborative that we had suggested in the B-Solutions case. Now they're all really enthusiastic. They invited Sardinia Hospital to speak. Now I'm following the emails. I'm just watching these emails, which I'm copied on, and there's now basically an exchange being set up between Valka and Sardinia Hospital, and they're going to keep going. And right in the middle of these are some of the civil servants in the national insurance funds who were seen as part of the problem. And they've realised that actually getting involved in this kind of innovation in their own practice as public administrators is life-enhancing and actually makes their jobs easier and helps them to be creative in their roles. And I think that, if we're talking about the question of what B-Solutions is doing for the future of cohesion and integration, I think one of the biggest things that we have acknowledged over the last few days is the continuing need to engage with and, in a sense, convert the centralist member state mentality to the idea that border regions are essential to the survival of the member state to an extent, but also then the European project, and that member states have a responsibility to enable border regions to work to their full potential. One of the ways that we can do that is by really giving meaning to this idea of the border region as the lab for innovation. The place where really exciting, innovative shared service models can be piloted on a cross-border basis, but they can also be modelled in a way that can be taken back inland in a country. So the idea of the kind of aptitudes and attitudes and methodologies that are used in cross-border cooperation are actually very useful and translatable into other areas of public sector reform. And I know this because a long time, I'm trying to think when it was in 2010, I had been working in regional, managing Interreg programs in the Irish border region. And I moved into the health service initially to manage a cross-border Interreg program. And then I moved on into the whole area of healthcare reform and transformation in the National Health Service in Northern Ireland. And I was joining people who'd been working in the system for 20 years, and I knew not as much as them about the actual system. But people said, how do you manage? How do you end up in a role like this, where you're working on integrated care, you're working on different kinds of relationships between community and hospital, secondary care. You're working on people working across, guess what, traditional boundaries. working in new ways and looking out over the top of the silos. And I said, actually, the skills that I'm using now in getting, cardiologists to work with GPs are actually the skills that I learned when I was working in cross-border cooperation. They're exactly the same skills. They're exactly the same kinds of methodologies that you can use to get people to work across untraditional boundaries. And if we are talking about the whole area of effectiveness reform, at a European level, but also the whole area of public sector efficiency, reform, innovation, being smart, being agile, then the ability to work on those horizontal systems that cross over different, defined boundaries, either budgetary or functional or legislational. All of those kind of, that sort of the vista that you get from a border region and the sense of possibility of that is actually a massive energy for making member states work better. And helping them to deal with the challenges that they have in terms of public resources and so on. So I think we need, with B Solutions, it is demonstrating in the countries where we're working on those cases, it's demonstrating to maybe only 2 or 3 ministry officials about how to do something differently. But that in itself lights a fire, and it lights a fire. And one thing I will say as well, I'm seeing a lot of young women in those ministries getting really enthusiastic. There is a kind of a collaborative leadership emerging in a lot of these countries that we're working in, where you have, and I would say there are women who are much, much younger than me, and I commend them, and they're getting really excited about that. And I think that's really, really positive for the future of the European Union. If you have people like these in central government who are also willing and excited to work with the border regions. So I don't think we should give up hope, but I think we need to think about how do we demonstrate the technical value of border regions for a wider European integration agenda. And I think that's what B Solutions does, not just by the cases and the evidence base, but also by the experience that people have when they become involved as stakeholders in implementing a B solution. So I think that's it. It's all about it's the experiential reality of the future of European integration is what B Solutions has enabled. And we're very grateful to the European Commission for having had the foresight to fund it and continue to fund it. So I think that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you very much.
Okay?
It's perfect. Thank you very much. Yes, there is hope. There is hope. Yesterday we were listening to a Secretary of State of the Norwegian government who was born here in Trysil. So, some sensitivity should have. And we have to be able to identify, catch them, and take them on our side. And this is part of the work that is being done by Caitriona in this chapter, Pillar 2, Objective 2 of B Solutions. It's once you get the attention of the national level and they see the importance of what we are doing, they get in. Mm-hmm. The question is how to break the ice. But it works. And even if you are thinking of approaching your national authorities and you don't know how, this is an option. We could go there and present some B solutions that could be an inspiration for them. And by the way, then we can explain that you should be better in this side than in the other. So yes, do not hesitate. This is the moment to take some risk, to improvise, to be ambitious, and to jump without net, because otherwise there will be no net and no trampoline at all. So better now than never. Thank you very much. I think we don't have that much time. We are about 1-2 minutes maybe before we go to the coffee break. But there are some questions. So let's go. I don't know, do we have these 4? Yeah. We'll start with the first, and let's see when my colleagues from Inland look at me with another face, then we will know that we are coming to an end. So let's start. Well, how can future European territorial cooperation address the challenges posed by the Russian aggression? Oh my God. Johannes?
Well, now there is territorial cooperation, I believe, in sectoral level, in the government level. The border authorities are discussing with each other. We have Frontex and so on. But if this means for example, NUTS 2 level actors, how would they address the challenges? One is to exchange practices. The aggressions are affecting quite many levels of different kind of, not only authorities, but also some NGOs, like well, maybe Red Cross is not quite NGO, but it's working locally too. so we are dealing like not the shelters for people, of course, the fire and rescue issues, of course, border security itself, but also energy sector that is safe, the electricity, the water supply, and also that all the functions like roads and logistics and everything is working in a like a aggressive situation, and there is certain there is knowledge that for example in Finland, and I heard that here in Sweden, Norway too, there are some aggressions towards, or at least investigations towards, for example, water supply, that somebody is maybe recording them and making some spying or so. So there are some activities which are done and some which are prepared, and so the municipal sector is involved there. Part of the functions are municipal, and there are regional actors. For example, we are planning now a new project about safety and security in Interreg Central Baltic together with Latgale, and we are involving a group of safety and security which is inside our region, and all the municipalities are involved, regional council is involved, police, border guards, energy company, water company, Red Cross, and so on. So it's a very wide question, and we try to find like a coalition to be able to provide information for the wider public from a like wide number of different sources. Now they are separately all the like questions and answers to the public. But also I would say that the emergency telephone is sometimes burdened by unnecessarily worries of people. They call the number even there is like direct emergency towards life or serious risk of health, and if it's not that, then it burdens unnecessarily the system, and we try to avoid that too. So there are many things, but it must be decided, I guess, separately, and the risk may be different for different regions.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think Caitriona wanted to comment on this question.
Yeah,
we have to be very brief because we are
really briefly
yeah?
on the territorial cooperation in terms of the challenges that have risen now because of Russian aggression. Two things: territorial cooperation keeps people connected with each other. It continues to humanize the other. If we stop doing it, we start to dehumanize each other, and that is the first risk towards destabilization. Second, so we're in a fight for democracy. We need to keep cooperating with each other. Second thing, on a practical level, one of the areas that's going to be really important is the health systems, particularly in Eastern Europe and with Ukraine, and those areas that the health needs of the Ukrainian population and anybody affected by the war are going to be massive, and they are going to be decades long. So territorial cooperation can help with that. I'm going to answer the question around was put up to me about the regulations. Can somebody scroll back down again, please, on the Sli.do so I can read it out? I think it was does harmonization lead to can efforts to harmonise standards sometimes result in overly complex rules and excessive bureaucracy? Yes, of course they can, but it depends what your methodology is. And in fact, one of the issues with cross-border dysregulation and divergence is that that actually some of the obstacles are excessive bureaucracy and overly complex rules because we haven't harmonised. So I think, yeah, it depends on the case and
exactly.
how you're going to solve it.
That's the issue. There was another question also, if you can, what is the loss on trade, if you have data on the loss on trade after the war? Very brief, please.
Very briefly, yes. I refer to this 1 million per day.
Yeah.
This is research results, which was before the war, we received this amount. We have a company which is doing polls at the border, interviewing the people, and they calculated it on basis on so-called border research, and it was about 350 million euro per year. Yes, the amount the Russians brought, and now there is no tourism, no border crossing for Russian individuals. If we then refer to the larger industry and their import and export, it's more complicated because in many cases the factories we have, they are international companies, and their sales is not recorded in our region. It's maybe recorded in Helsinki or elsewhere. So we can get better the tons which cross the border, the cargo crossing the border.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. There was another question about the recommendations of ESPON CHANEBO, but clearly the recommendations cannot be ready until the project is done. We expect that, yes, that there will be policy recommendations, and especially we want CHANEBO to have perhaps a new program addressing exactly the needs of these regions. Peter, there is a question for you. Yes. Is German support for Interreg robust?
The short answer is we hope. The half-long answer is we will do anything to get in contact with anybody who can decide. But the third, and also a part of the truth, we do not even know who is sitting at the bottom, and we know not the development that will come, but we will try very hard to make it happen. Even we had this experience with ECBM, we did not know who is making the decisions or the ideas or who is influencing, but we try very hard.
Okay, thank you very much. There was another question about if Interreg is a cluster risk. Maybe, but it's much more risky if we don't have Interreg at all. And also there was another question about the details on Interreg Volunteer Youth. I would recommend you to visit the website. It's Interreg Youth. It's very simple. Google, you have all the information. I have a couple of brochures also here that I can distribute, but in the website you have everything. And of course, I am around there. You can come to me, and Cinzia Della Giacoma has been working for IB for 6 years, so she can also provide a lot of information, and we are fully available for you to answer any question. I thank you very much, guys. It's always a pleasure to work with you. We are working together for many years, and I think sometimes it's important that we share with our colleagues in AEBR and our friends all the things that we are doing, all the things we want to do, if we are allowed, if we know, and if we have the resources. So thank you very much to all of you, and now you can enjoy your coffee. Thank you, guys.